conversation with Jon Mozes from the Altoona Curve, brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. John, on the road in Richmond, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful. Good to have you with us here today. So,
it is a joy to be here.
So the Curve on a road trip after a successful homestand against the Erie Seawolves. You think back on that. You go 2 straight cities, and that's a long time, those 2 6-game road trips out there. 6-game stands, and then you come home for one, and then you're back on the road to Richmond. There's a lot of travel that going on in the minor leagues, and maybe not as much because of the 6-game stands, but it is an adjustment, isn't it?
It sure is. You know, being in the same city for 6 days in a row and playing the same opponent for 6 days in a row is different, not only for the broadcasters, but also for the team. You know, they have to change their signs every couple days. They have to make adjustments in terms of how they're pitching against the opposing lineup or how they approach the opposing pitchers. And, you know, by the end of the series, you know, guys have seen each other for every, they've seen just about every pitcher on the opposing staff. So it makes for an interesting development experience. But, you know, I will say being in, you know, not having to travel after a night game on a Thursday night has been kind of nice to start the season.
Yeah, the thing is, though, once you get 2 or 3 days into a road trip, you got to find things to do in these cities. And that can be, you know, that's part of that growing up process in the minor leagues is learning how to spend a day in order to get ready for the game that night. And these guys have to learn all of that, too.
For sure. And, you know, I think that's an adjustment for everybody. You know, you go to places that you never expected to be. You know, minor league baseball has taken me, on a personal note, to sort of cities and towns I never thought I'd have the chance to see in person. And, you know, it's been an interesting experience, but you sort of learn to find something interesting in each place to keep yourself busy during the day.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Curve themselves. Roansy Contreras will be on the mound tonight. He's been more than a little bit of a revelation, hasn't he?
Oh, he is very impressive. You know, one of the main pieces in the trade between the New York Yankees and the Pirates for Jameson Taillon, you know, I think the Pirates had a pretty good idea that Contreras could be a good pitcher for them, but I'm not sure they expected this. You know, his first start of the season, he struck out a career-high 11 batters. His next start, he took a perfect game into the 6th inning, again with 11 strikeouts. You know, he gave up a couple runs for the first time this season last week on Tuesday, but it's a really impressive profile. It's a fastball in the mid-90s. He works up to 98 with it. He's got a very good curveball, a very good changeup, and, you know, I spoke to a scout during our last homestand who said, you know, his slider looks great too. So he's really got 4 pitches that are really impressive and, you know, appear to be on the way to becoming big league caliber, not, you know, in the very near future. So it's very impressive to watch him pitch, and I'm looking forward to seeing him tonight against Richmond.
Yeah, one of the interesting things to me is they try to slot these guys into, he's a top of the rotation guy, he's a middle of the rotation guy, that sort of thing. And they sort of seem to be leaning toward Contreras as being at the top of the rotation. But bottom line is you're going out once every 5 days and you're pitching, and it doesn't matter if you're the number 5 starter or the number 2 or 1, you got to do the job.
For sure. And, you know, Roansy has been really impressive. I think, you know, the fact that he's also 21 years of age is pretty impressive to see what he's done to start the season because, you know, he's about 3 years younger than the average player that he's playing against. And, you know, I think that's an indication that his approach to the game and the stuff that he brings to the table is good enough.
Some pretty big names with the Altoona Curve roster. Everybody's looking at O'Neill Cruz and thinking that's going to be pretty special. Mason Martin is another guy that people have a lot of hope for. But then you get a guy like Brent Sitta, who's, a 38th round draft choice coming up, and he starts swinging the stick pretty good right off the bat. It must be interesting watching these Curve guys because you've got highly touted prospects who have to grow into their roles just as much as these other guys that are trying to make some sort of an impression.
For sure. And, you know, a guy like Brent Sitta, for me, is an example of what's great about minor league baseball. You just never know. And, you know, that's one of the mantras from our manager, Miguel Perez. He says, look, you never know when you'll get the opportunity or when you can get there or how it all works out. So Brent has been really impressive, just not trying to do too much at the plate, and, you know, he's got some good power in there. But, you know, like you said, he's a guy that I didn't know a ton about before the season, and been swinging a great bat, and it's been really nice to have that right-handed bat in the middle of the lineup for the Curve, because the team has just about all left-handers. Jon Mozes at the top of the order. Cruz is left-handed. Castro is a switch hitter who's mostly batting left-handed because he's facing right-handers a lot. Mason Martin's left-handed. Both of the corner outfielders, Mitchell and Smith and Jigba, on a daily basis, there's like 5 or 6 guys in the lineup that are batting left-handed. So it's nice to have a little bit of balance, and Brett has really provided that.
Hey, you mentioned Jon Mozes. Is he the prospect everybody thinks he is? He looks like he's pretty slick.
He can really fly. He can really run. I'm really impressed with that. And, I think he's going through a little bit of an adjustment at the plate to figure out, to get back into the rhythm of being away from the game. I think, they won the batting title in the South Atlantic League back in 2019, batted .323. So we have some idea that it's in there. He just hasn't quite gotten into the good rhythm yet at the plate, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it's this week where he, bangs out 9 hits in 6 games or something like that, and you start to see the numbers come around for him. But he's an impressive player too, and I think there's really a bright future for him as well.
We're talking to Jon Mozes, the Altoona Curve. That's interesting you said that, and the way that you said it, because, maybe we don't really realize it as much as we should, but these guys didn't get to play baseball last year. You take a year off from the major leagues, and obviously that's a problem. And they did get to play some major league ball last year, but for the most part, these minor league guys, at the most important stage of their development, they got told, you can't play baseball this year. You can't play a regular season. You can't develop in the way that normally you would. That has to put them a little bit behind. It has to have been quite the challenge this year to get back to speed.
Sure, yeah. And, I think that's been my observation is that, the players that had the opportunity to play at the alternate training sites last summer or play in Major League Spring Training Camp this year are a little bit ahead of everybody else. Baseball is such a game of rhythm, particularly hitting. And, if you go a long time without competitive at-bats, you just sort of lose the feel and the rhythm for it. And, I think that's been pretty difficult for players to sort of get back into the rhythm this year. Often, I'm sure as you observe in the majors, offense is down, and I think that's still the case in the minors. And I think, from a minor league perspective, it's more because players just aren't in the rhythm. They haven't played as much recently. And I think that, this is also an important stage of the development. So, not have, several of these players who are with the Curve now would have been slated to open the 2020 season at Double-A, and some of these other guys may have been at High A or even at Low A, depending on how the rosters would have shaken out in 2020. So just a lot of missed repetition in 20, and the players that were able to play at the alternate training sites or really tinker with their own games at home, whether it was on a local Little League field or in a hitting cage with their personal gurus, those guys that were able to get the work in look better. But on a grand scale, it's seen a lot of guys still sort of knocking off the rust the first few weeks.
Yeah, understandable. Okay, so Curve for 6 at Richmond. Are you home after that?
We are. We're back to People's Natural Gas Field at full capacity beginning on Tuesday, June 8th. A lot of great promotions coming up on that homestand. We have a fireworks show. Josh Bell bobblehead giveaway is on the way, and we're looking forward to seeing all of our good friends and hopefully have some good weather when we're back in Altoona next week.
That'll be fun. That'll be a good time. In fact, I'm looking ahead at the weather forecast. You're going to have hot weather on top of everything else.
Love it.
It's the best. It's the best. Jon Mozes, thanks for being with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160 and AM